Welcome back to Introduction to Engineering Design. This is Module 7.4, and we're working on Part 2, Subassembly 2. This subassembly consists of the T9 front, 2 axles, and the 2-block socket. So I'll start this out with File, New, Assembly. Okay. The base part that I'm going to make the fixed part in my assembly is going to be the T9 front. So I'll click on the T9 front, open. You'll notice that it orients into my model. Now I can use the floating toolbar to reorient the direction. The other way I can do that is I can right click and I get those same commands, X, Y, and Z rotation. So looking down here at my axis of X, Y, and Z, you can see that I need to rotate this thing. I want the front to face towards the left side of the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and rotate this once in the X and roll it over. And then in the Y, I need to do that twice in the X. There we go. That's the orientation right there that I want. I'll use the check mark to place it at the origin. And now I've got my model initially started. Just like last time, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to insert my axle. Don't care about the orientation. And I'm going to grab a second axle. Don't care about the orientation. Last thing I want to do is insert my 2-block socket. Don't care about the orientation particularly. So let's start out by putting my axles in. This time let me show you a different way to do this. So I showed you before how you can view different things like planes and axes. So I'm going to come down here and go View and show temporary axes. So every hole and a lot of features have axes associated with it. In this particular instance, I've got an axis that goes through the middle of this axle, and I'm going to go ahead and mate that axis to the corresponding axis in the hole in the body. And you'll notice I can flip the mate alignment, which I will, and accept it. Now that's very similar to what the coincident mate did, except I lined up the axes. So let's go ahead and mate the surface against the body of the surface. And we'll mate the planes here in just a second. So I'm going to go over here and turn on the view of my axle planes, and I want to see the top plane. And I got to get out of my mate here. So let me get out of the mate here real quick. I want my axle top plane, and I want to be able to see that. And I also want to be able to see in my front, and I want the front plane in that one. I'll turn on planes in my view. Now I can see those two planes. So let me mate the planes into a parallel relationship. And now I've fully constrained that axle. Real quick, we're going to do the same action on the second axle. So I choose the axis of the axle, make it coincident with the axes of the hole. That alignment looks correct. Drag it over here so it's a little bit easier. Line up my two planes. Make them parallel. You'll notice that SOLIDWORKS is doing most of the selections for me. And then I'm going to place the shoulder against the surface of the body. So now I've got two axles placed into my front. Let me turn on some more planes. So I'm going to turn off the view of the temporary axes, and I want to look at the planes that are within my 2-block socket. So I'm going to turn on all of these planes. Front, top, right plane. And similarly in my body, I'm going to turn on the top and the right. Now you're going to notice something. You'll notice that if you use symmetry in your modeling, the right plane lines up to the right plane between the connector block and the front. So I'll go ahead and select the mate icon or the mate button. Choose my right plane of the connector block and the right plane of the body, and I'm going to make them coincident. So what I just did is I made this part so that it stays in the middle of the model. It's kind of neat. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and align the front surface of this. Actually, let me align the top plane of the connector to the front plane of the body. So now you'll see this thing is centered in the hole. The last thing is I'm going to make this face of the connector line up to the face of the body. Select that. So now I'm fully constrained. As I exit out, you'll see that my assembly is fully defined, but I've got all these ugly planes showing. So one way I can do that is I can turn off planes. And now I have made Subassembly 2. So I'm going to go File, Save As, Subassembly 2, Save, and move on. So that's Subassembly 2, which is the front 2 axles and a double connector block. And what we did was looked at mating parts together using temporary axes and planes. Thanks for watching.